Howdy. So this is Lots, and I'm just going to show you how to play. And this is Liz. So we're going to play a game. I'll now explain the rules. The cards are numbered from 2 to 19. Two different colors. So there's 36 cards. We're using 2 decks. So we each have 36 cards. So we each have two of each number. 2 2s, 2 3s. What you do is players take turns laying a card down on the discard pile. So Liz, how about you lay a card down first?
Any card?
Yeah, any card. So, to play a card, she just played an 18. I could play a number 1 lower or 1 higher, so a 17 or a 19. Or divide it in half, or double the number. The highest card is a 19, so you can't double the 18 to 36. There's no cards. But I can play a 9. Also, with 2 numbers, you can add them up. So 1 plus 8 equals 9. So I'm going to play the 9 card. Now, Liz, you should have laid down a card on your turn. So when you played on the discard pile, you also have to lay down a card, and you're allowed 3 lay down piles. Now, if you play a card on top of another card, this card will be blocked. You can play the 14, but you can't play the 2 until you've played the 14. If you play from your lay down pile, you don't play from your hand. If you play from your hand, you have to also lay down a card. So it's your turn, Liz. This game was designed for flatliner projects, so I had to add greater depth. You can't play just with 1 deck of cards, so each player would have 18 cards each. And with that, you just lay them down on the discard pile, and there would be no lay down piles. The reason I did this was to add greater depth to the game, so you use 2 decks. So you might have 4 or 5 card options to lay down here, but then you have other options to lay down here. So you might have between the two 50 different possibilities, choices. So it's just to add greater depth to the game. The problem is when you're playing, your cards might slowly get locked up. You know, you have to start playing on top of another card. So you can't play the 8 and the 2 until you played the card on top. So you have to start watching your opponent to see what cards they're playing. You might want to play a card, but then you know that they'll be able to play off of the card you're playing here. So you might choose to play a different card, preventing them from playing from their lay down pile. So it just adds greater complexity to the game. So she played a card 1 higher than the 9.
And should I put 1 more card?
Now you have to place a card. It's better to start a new pile instead of blocking a card right away. You're allowed 3 piles, so you have to lay down a card. I would just lay it on a new pile. So my option is, Liz played a 10. I can play a 9, 11, or divide it in half to a 5. But I can't play a 20 because there is no 20 card. So I'll play an 11 once I find an 11 card in my hand. And now I have to place a lay down card. So I'll place an 8. Now I have a choice, 11, a 13, divide it in half, a 6, or add the numbers. 1 plus 2 is 3, so I can lay it down a 3 card. So that's what I'll do. Now I have to place a card to lay down, a lay down card, so I'll place a 15. So now all three three's the limit, so if I lay down next time, I'm going to have to cover up a card, unfortunately.
No, I just got here last week. I'm going to Nelson Farm with Whitewater.
Okay.
Okay, Terry.
So she had to, when laying down a card, she had to place it on top of one of these numbers.
That's I think the only one.
So now the 5 is blocked. Before she can play the 5, she has to play the 6. So the problem now is her cards might start to back up, which reduces the number of playing options that she has. And the way you win the game is by forcing your opponent so they can't play. The player loses if they're unable to place a card on the discard pile. I could play a 3
Yeah, I don't know. Depends on
or a
what
4 or an 11. 1 plus 1 equals 2. So with the double cards,
I don't know what it is.
you could play an 11 on a 2 and a 2 on an 11. So now I have to lay down a card. Unfortunately, I have to block one of my cards. I'll put the 16 onto the 2. So Liz is going to play the 10 directly from her lay down pile. And now her turn's done. And that was a good, because you're trying to keep as few cards in your lay down piles as possible so you don't start locking them in. So basically you can either play directly from your hand, but if you do, you also have to play a card on one of a lay down card. But if you play directly from a lay down card, your turn's done. So you're trying to keep as few lay down cards as possible, because remember, you lose if you're unable to play. So it increases the chances that you won't be able to play if your cards are being locked up. So I'm going to play
Figure it out if you decide last minute, like sweet.
a 9,
So I'm taking the time right now.
6.
It's where I sort of stayed and showered last year. What are you doing? She's a really friend of mine. So she's a studio apartment and she's dating my town as a house. So she sleeps like 5 minutes away from this house.
So I'm going to play 9. So I'm going to play 9. Liz is unable to play. She would need a 12, a 14, or a 4. And she doesn't have anything to play. She can't divide it in half. She can't double it. So she's lost the game. I'm the winner, so I don't have to count up any of my cards. Only the loser has to count up the cards. So I'm going to show you how to score the game now. And for the Flatliner project, we play 2 games. One player starts first, then the other player starts first. Only the loser adds up their score. So Liz, how about you pass me your cards? You lost. So first off, you count up all of your cards. So I think she has 15 total cards. So you put 15 down for number 1. Now we add in a second way of scoring. It's 1 point for every card in your hand and 2 points for every lay down card. So 7 lay down cards times 2, that's 14 points. Then 8 cards in your hand, that's 22 points. So we just write down 22 points. And the third way to score, you have to simply write down every card you have. So she has 119 card, 118 card, 117 card, 116 card, 115, one 13 or two 13s. I would just put a small 2 beside the 13. 2 11 cards, and you just keep going like that. And then that's how you score. So we play then a second game, and if I win again, then we know that I've won. But if Liz wins the second game, I then have to score my cards. So let's say I scored 15, then we tied. So then we have to move on to the second. Let's say I also scored 22. Then we have to move on to the third to see who wins. So let's say I scored, instead of 119, I scored 219. Then I would lose because I have more cards of a higher number. So basically, you can win on your first score if one score is lower than the other, then the player wins. If you're tied, then you move on to the second number. So if one player has a lower score, they would win. But if you tie on the second way to score, then you move on to the third. So thank you for listening. This is specifically lots 1 by 1. It's the flatliner game. There'll be a couple dozen ways to play lots, but what's interesting about lots 1 by 1 is there's no luck. It's like chess or checkers. And if you're not sure about the rules, read the instructions and go to www.strugglergames.com.